Alright guys, about 2 months ago, Netflix released a movie called The Good Nurse, which is based on a true story of a real-life nurse who is actually still alive, although in prison, Charles Cullen. Charles Cullen was a nurse in New Jersey, killed something like an estimated of 400 people. He was sentenced to something like 29 deaths, murders, and confessed to about 40 more, which is ridiculous. Not really here to talk about Charles, but really here to talk about how it happened and how it could continue to happen, how it could very easily happen again. The way that he did these things, he used 3 medications typically. He may or may not have used more: epinephrine, insulin, and digoxin, all of which do good things when used in moderation, but when taken out of moderation can cause catastrophic effects quickly. He typically did this by injecting things IV, so he would put them in their bag as they were hanging, or if the patient had a hep lock, just go ahead and push it straight in the hep lock, and then they would just go ahead and die. Sometimes not immediately. Sometimes it would take days for things to happen, especially for the insulin. Now, how could this happen? How did this happen? And how was he able to get away with it for so long? Now, how he was able to get away with it for so long, I honestly don't know. You would think that someone would pick up on it. I imagine if you were to do this now, someone's going to catch you, and it's going to be easy or easier for them to catch you. He was caught back in 2003, so almost 20 years ago he was caught. However, the digital charting has progressed significantly, so you could do it, but there's no way you could do it 400 times in any case. Now, one of these medications, insulin, I know firsthand, you have oftentimes some left over in the bottle. Very, very, very rarely do you have a bottle that you use the entirety of in one go-round. What I mean by that is, typically when a patient is on insulin, you say, okay, well, you're going to have 14 units because your blood sugar is such and such. Well, a vial doesn't have just 14 units in it. Very rarely do you have the correct amount in that bottle. It's very easy for you to just pull up another set, another 100 units, another however many units come in that bottle, and then do whatever you want to do with it, which is probably what Charles did with it. Just a year or so ago, there was a nurse in Texas, a cardiac nurse in Texas, who was not even doing that and was just simply injecting air, boom, straight into people's IVs, or I think he was even going through their A lines and just killing them by putting air in. It doesn't take much to cause an embolus when you're using air like that. And so when you drop all that insulin, no one's going to know that bottle has a little more taken out. They're just not. That bottle of insulin isn't as counted as honestly what it should be. And of course, it was easier to do this 20 years ago when Charles Cullen was doing this, and then you can just put it in a bag while it's hanging, while someone's sleeping, and very quickly and very easily and very scarily sort of get away with it for a little bit. I mean, eventually you're going to get caught. Charles eventually got caught, which is fortunate for the general public, but it could still very likely happen. Dig is something that is oftentimes in pill form. You could very easily crush it up and then slide that into an IV bag. Dig toxicity is a very real thing, and Charles Cullen exposed that you can very easily kill people with dig. Epinephrine is probably one that would be harder to get a hold of in quantities now. Probably not the easiest to get a hold of in today's standards, but the other 2 medications can very easily kill someone, very scarily kill someone, when you don't even take a whole lot. You could take the rest of the bottle of insulin. It doesn't take much. A lot of insulin cannot be given IV due to catastrophic effects. A lot of insulin needs to be given sub-Q. Very few types of insulin can be given IV. And then once you push these IV insulins or these non-IV insulins IV, again, you cause catastrophic effects very quickly, as Mr. Cullen, Charles Cullen, has discovered, if you will. it's scary to think how easy it is for a nurse or medical professional of some sort to sort of get away with this or to sort of do this to someone. It doesn't take much. As I said before, the nurse in Texas, the ICU nurse in Texas, didn't even use medication. Just simply put air, throw a PICC line, throw an A line, or maybe even an IV, and the ambulance would kill people by giving them strokes and things. Terrible, terrible things. And the nurses, now, when someone says, hey, I saw the good nurse, you're not going to be that nurse to me, are you? You really can't say a lot. We can't just say, oh, that was, no, we're not going to do that. Trust me, there's things to prevent that. No, there honestly isn't enough sort of checking to prevent that. Oddly and scarily enough, which is a different level of concerning. Thankfully, this is very rare. This doesn't happen often. It's very rare that this happens. I can only think of these two instances where nurses were purposely killing people, which is a terrible, terrible thing and a terrible, terrible situation. But it could still happen. It could still very easily happen, and nurses could concerningly do it, which is terrible. I hope it helps. If you do watch the movie, do check out the movie. Just know this happened and could likely happen again. So, hope it helps. Thank you much.